Click the links to join the channel here over at Subscribe Star. Thanks to everyone over there, especially Vegan. So, Richard Dreyfuss, welcome to the cancellation party. We're going to need a bigger boat. I can't imagine by now you haven't seen Jaws or reading the book by Peter Benchley, who also wrote The Beast and the Girl from the Sea of Cortez. He wrote a lot of good books. And then I read a book about, in a long form interview with him talking about Jaws. He says, yeah, if he wrote Jaws, and then he learned about sharks after he wrote Jaws, which is fine. It was just a fun book, and later made it into a fun movie. But he says, yeah, if he knew what he learned about sharks after, he wouldn't have written Jaws. He thought he viewed it as kind of a mistake because actually shark conservatism is very important. But then the scene in this is from Piranha 3D, which actually for the budget was a really good movie. So he did a little throwback scene. That's the original Jaws. I think it's 50 years old now. We're gonna need a bigger boat. If I had to guess, that was probably Spielberg's best movie. Did he do Raiders also, or was that Lucas? I was kind of get those guys confused. Both between the two of them, they had a. I think they teamed up for Indiana Jones, right? Like Lucas did Star Wars, and then they teamed up for. Anyway, so what happened was he's talking about it's cancellation day for Richard Dreyfuss, which is when you're woke in Hollywood, but you're not woke enough, like with the Paul Stanley from Kiss, or the Twisted Sister guy, Dee Snider, and every once in a while, who's the other girl, Evangela Lilly, who was in Ant-Man. Every once in a while, people are coming, and Nicki Minaj has had some interesting questions about things over the years. And who was that girl who was in Wakanda? That Shuri played the role of Shuri. I forget. She had some interesting questions about the narrative. And when people start asking these questions, they get reminded. Their place in the world very quickly. But it's interesting to see that I'm seeing more and more people that are legitimately left-wing people start to come out and make some comments that really get my attention. I did not think they would be saying these kind of things. So credit to them for that. Credit to them for that. And it's one thing if you're 75 and you're retired from Hollywood. It's like, yeah, Richard Dreyfuss is, after this interview, he's done. I don't know if he knew, like, there still could have been a role for him, even at 75, to play a role for sure. But I don't know if he knew that what he said in this interview would be the thing that would, like, oh, you're done in Hollywood. Like, you're not even going to get a grandfather role after this interview. I don't know if he was aware of that. I don't know. Like, because people are in the left wing where they think they're firmly in the left wing. Like when Stephen King came out and he made that quote about, yeah, art should be judged on the merit, of course. And Stephen King, who's worth a ton of money, has got a ton of pedigree behind him for across various art forms, very solid books behind him. Like nobody can take his accomplishments away from him. And this is from someone on the right saying this, who's not a fan of Stephen King. Immediately, he said something very reasonable. Art should be judged on the merit. That's a very reasonable statement. It's like, yeah, but that's not that can't exist in Bolshevism. You don't understand. Your masters are Bolsheviks, globalists, whatever you want to call them. Things cannot be judged on the merit. That's not the concept of the critical theory from the Frankfurt School, from the Bolsheviks. That's what you're dealing with. There's no need to. Oh, we call it critical R theory. Yeah, but it's from the Frankfurt School. It's from Moses Mordecai Levy from 100 years ago. It's like you want to go back to the source. No. Just don't look any further back than the life of a fly over a pond at feeding time. Just focus on the here and now. And then nobody ever does any investigation. Would Feynman talk about questions you can't ask, type of thing? Anyway, so first of all, and in his defense, yeah, I don't think he was talking about putting on dark makeup to play Othello, which is coming up. And the thing is, in that guy's credit who played Othello, Laurence Olivier, he really kind of looked the role. He really kind of nailed that role. But yeah, that's probably should he be able to play a sub-Saharan African? That's kind of a meaningless question. It's like, well, can you get it funded and can you get it distributed, and would people be fine with it? It's like, well, the reverse is true. Yeah, the reverse is true because the puppet masters are pushing a certain narrative. But do people really want to see Macbeth, a Scottish king played by Denzel Washington. No, it's just part of the humiliation ritual coming from these same Bolsheviks. But the reverse is also true. I wouldn't want to see Shaka Zulu played by, Brad Pitt. It's like it's ridiculous both ways. Anyway, so to be eligible for these soy movie awards, and really, like, you want to look about the declining power. Yeah, Hollywood's a powerhouse. It's not disappearing tomorrow. Disney's not disappearing tomorrow. Disney's probably not never going to disappear. But the declining power of Hollywood is kind of measured by the awards ceremonies, where people are looking at Hollywood in a different way. Where the awards ceremonies themselves used to be a big deal, and they just shrink and shrink every year. And now you look at TV and you go like, wait, they're not on TV anymore. You have to like hunt around for something that used to be kind of a big deal. So movies, to be eligible for these awards, have to be literal propaganda, literal pravda, not figuratively but literally. And while and to Kevin Smith's credit, in Jay and Silent Bob Part Two, which was not a great movie, but it had its highlights. He's making fun of the Bechdel tests. He's making fun of a lot of things in that movie, to his credit. It's weird to see a movie that puts the unmentionable groups at the focus of a little bit of humor. So that was you got to give Kevin Smith credit for that. It's like I didn't think he had it in him to take shots at some groups that must not be named. Anyway, so the thing is, yes, you can make whatever movies you want to make if you can find the money and the venues to distribute the films. But really, you look at who distributes films. It's like a half a dozen companies, and so they really do have kind of a control the keynotes and infrastructure, the choke points. Then you really have control of this giant propaganda machine, because Hollywood's not entertainment. It has been entertainment for a long time, and I mean like over 50 years. It's been propaganda for a long time. Realistically, Larry Fink at BlackRock is going to be pulling a lot of strings. It's weird how much influence Fink has, yet the articles cover him so very carefully as if they're afraid. Weird. It's sort of like the non-existent coverage of the Epstein stuff. Rest in peace, Isaac Cappy and David Crocco and Axe Truth. There's no future in Hollywood. By that I mean the mainstream stuff. Look at films over the past few years and tell me I'm wrong. Hollywood is useful to the puppet masters as the primary tool to maintain control of the narrative and manipulate the left of the bell curve, cattle debt slaves into fear-based compliance. And they've been very successful at that. Though some of the white pills are stuff like Gab and Telegram and even Twitter now that Elon bought it. Things are a little bit looser under Elon. I'm still banned, and a lot of people are still banned accounts, but things are a little different under Elon. It's you can kind of sniff something in the wind. Anyway, your only purpose to them is as a source of taxes and to extract resources from, or maybe some of these people are I suspect they're are drinking bodily fluids and not the fun ones. Extract resources from when you are. Anne Rice is in this weird article talking about drinking blood from the young people, because it has substances in it that can have kind of an anti-aging effect. And she wrote the Vampire Chronicles or stories, whatever, about 30 years ago. And there's this article, and they're actually talking about blood drinking of young people for the elderly. It's something to read. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like it just kind of makes you want to stack Liberty devices and Freedom pellets. Get those fishing rods and make sure that you go fishing and you lose all your fishing rods. But make sure you have a. If you always talk about fishing rods, I go, yeah, okay, really, a couple for sure, a couple in the standard, but really it's the bait. It's the bait that's critical. It's the bait, like figure out a standard. Like I think NATO has a standard, for those two things. You probably want to, agree on a standard, but it's like the bait, because you can only use, have a couple for backups for sure. But it's the bait that you really want to get on board with. Anyway, so your only purpose to them is tax sources basically, and when you're no longer useful, they'll make you homeless and send you the Canadian removal from this mortal coil center form. What I'm saying is malicious, and remove tyranny. Toot sweet is don't cut yourself with all that 4chan edge. It's like, yeah, history kind of shows eventually those 4chan edgy boys kind of wake up every 100 years. Is it likely to awaken the cattle, or do people want to turn off the high fructose, mental soy slop and corn syrup and prawn and video games and sports ball and Uber Eats and like is it easy to awaken cattle? No, of course not. But it's possible. If the alternative is at a large scale the Canadian healthcare, then it doesn't matter what the odds are because the fight is going to be worth it. So some of the puppets think that they're pulling the strings, but every so often they go skating on thin ice and they get their strings pulled to put them back in place. They have to be reminded that someone else is pulling their strings. Are they the Waldo? So free speech cannot exist under cultural Bolshevism. And under speech would include art, Hollywood, anything that parodies and lampoons them, the role of the court jester. You can't have, like stand-up comedy. I was writing these articles years ago about how you can't have stand-up comedy in a Bolshevik framework. It's just not allowed to. We speak truth to power. No, you speak with Bank of America, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, and all these other names. Probably shouldn't be saying too much often on YouTube. So you're raging against the machine, but like every corporation and social media company and mainstream media company, it's owned by 6 companies. They're all on your side. Like you're on the left and you're raging, but you're saying what Bank of America is funding you to say. Like you don't. At some point, you don't awaken to that and go, "Oh, wait a minute, wait. We're on the left, right. We're on the left. Bank of America is on the same side as us." Something is wrong here. Something is wrong here with this equation. Eventually, some of them get it. And as you see, like there are some people on the left who are kind of starting to pull their, like that ostrich head in the sand a little bit. Anyway, so Bolsheviks are bad people, and they have bad ideas that fall apart under any rigorous cross-examination. The open marketplace of ideas turns out to be a brutal testing ground. So it's a wrestling match where you wrestle all day long to exhaustion, you recover for a few days, and then you train again. You get better and better, and you learn a whole lot about whatever form of wrestling you're doing. In a free speech environment, the best ideas remain at the top. The globalists have the worst ideas. The only way they can remain at all is because they manipulate the dissemination of information via schools and media. They're not totally in control because as kids hit about 18, they start to realize how insane these left-wing ideas are, and you get out of high school. And back in the 90s, it would have been talk radio. Nowadays, thank God, the white pill of Telegram, Gab, even Twitter, and all these other social media platforms, we can sneak these Joker pills to people to kind of get them started down the rabbit hole. And I know it's funny about the Matrix, which I always thought was loosely based on William Gibson's books. Where I forget who made the Matrix, but the people who made it are like far left wing nut jobs, and the red pill concept. They're so ticked off about that. Where I guess they made Matrix Part 4, but nobody saw it. I saw a few minutes of it. The thing is, you get out of high school and you quickly realize like, oh, we only learned one side of a story because all these people on Gab and Telegram and all these other forums and chat rooms are telling us the other side of the approved story that's not the approved globalist side. And, eventually you learn, like, the Feynman stuff about, like, questions. The truth doesn't fear investigation. You got to be able to talk about everything, ask all kinds of questions. And you leave the government schools and the mainstream media and you start realizing, oh, like, that is the Matrix. Like, they want you firmly locked in this fear compliance mode where you can't start looking outside and start saying things like, but the things I'm saying are objectively true. And you're still trying to silence that form of dissent. It's like that's some sort of mental slavery. Anyway, I mean, you've been a slave since 1909, I think, and then ratified in 1913. So if the media and schools are in agreement, it's probably not the whole truth. It's what they want you to believe. It's funny if people look at that 1913 the act and it goes, that's the kind of the definition of slavery, and then endless wars and taxation to pay for it. Like nobody ever like spent 100 years. You never want to like stop over 100 years. Stop and think about that. No. Let's just leave that elephant alone. Okay, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should turn on the lights and at least start carving up the elephant. Anyway, so Hollywood now literally has a propaganda framework. Think how insane that is, and the useful idiots on the left think it's great. I support it because I'd never support Hollywood at all. The more woke, the better. At this point, it's better to accelerate things to destruction. You can't fix this. You can't fix many things. So no, there's no redemption for Hollywood. It is a wicked hive of scum and villainy. The people who fly private jets to climate conferences, literally burning hundreds of liters of fuel a minute to fly them and a crew, like to France from New York or something. It's like, so you burn 200,000 liters of kerosene to get there, or whatever it is they fly on. I don't know. Yeah. To lecture us that even Priuses now aren't good enough. We have to take transportation. No. Even the buses aren't good enough. We have to live in 15-minute cities. Don't you guys live in gated communities with armed guards? Yeah. But you guys don't need the Second Amendment. You don't. It's not the Second Amendment is not for self defense or for hunting. It's for destroying tyranny by removing the. Anyway, so you can't fix Hollywood. Enjoy that 15-minute city and open borders. It's while the people from gated communities tell you, the people in their $100,000 Teslas. I don't know if they drive Teslas. I mean, the left is like, I don't think they're giving up their Teslas too much because it's fine. I live in a neighborhood where there's people in literal $100,000 plus cars, and then there's people in $15,000 Kias, and they'll just live next door to each other. So I don't see the left wing giving up their Teslas anytime soon, because they really like those Teslas for some reason. Anyway, so then they vacation on islands where they Epstein kids. At some point, you got to put on the sunglasses. That's why the fight scene in that movie, the John Carpenter movie, was so long and so silly, because that's how hard it is to force people to finally see. Anyway, I was as careful as I can make it. Like, comment, subscribe. You can join the Subscribe Star, or drop me something, a comic book in the mail if you wish. Thanks, Vegan. And drop me email, biancazombie63@gmail.com, and I'll go check it. And I'll see you guys all next episode.